Alright, here's part 11 set in Unova. However, instead of my trainer going to the poison or water gym, he'll be facing off the dragon gym. For how well, you must see it to believe it. And don't worry, I am going to leave Ash's journey alone, so it's not going to affect him. So, without further any delay, let's start part 11. So the day came for the Pokkén Tournament. Besides Ash and his friends, he also met the rivals from the Battle Club. Those being Georgia, Bianca, Burgundy, Trip, and Stefan. Once the first round pairings were set, Omega's first opponent will be Betty. After watching Delbert and Montgomery's battle, the previous champion, Montgomery and his foe, won the battle. Next is Burgundy and her duet against Iris and an Excadrill. Like in the anime, Excadrill won. Then it was Omega versus Betty. Betty used a Simipour, while Omega uses Swilus. Swilus struggled against Simipour, but ultimately won. Now everything still follows. Ash won against Angus, Stefan won against Edmund, Silent won against Flora, Georgia won against Gale, and Bianca won against Trip. At the end of the day, Trip left, seeing he was no longer at the Club Explosion anymore. The next day, the results were in for the second round of the tournament. Omega was up against Ash, Montgomery against Iris, Stefan against Silent, and Bianca against Georgia. In the battle against Ash and Omega, Ash's strategy newly learned move, Focus Blast, can't land Swilus. In the end, Swilus won the battle with a Dragon Pulse. Everything still follows. Iris lost to Montgomery, Silent lost to Stefan, and Georgia lost to Bianca. The result for the second round were announced. Omega was up against Montgomery, and Bianca was up against Stefan. It was going to happen tomorrow, so Omega would try to train his Swilus ready for tomorrow. In the morning, the first match of the third round was about to begin. Bianca against Stefan, and in the end, Bianca lost. Up next is Omega and Montgomery. While Swilus hang in there from Fro's attacks, but in the end, Fro finished it off with Seismic Toss. At the end of the day, Omega lost. After saying goodbye to Ash and his friends, Omega decided to continue on his journey. Whilst driving to the next gym, Omega stopped for a break with his team. However, Swilus didn't eat his food. Omega, knowing that Swilus is upset from losing to the Club Explosion, so he decided to cheer him up with a little story. By telling him the story about his Rhyhorn, about his challenge and his superior evolution, and loss. But after some training, he evolved into Rhydon, and even though it evolved, it still lost. After hearing the story, Swilus feels happy and started eating again, and trained with Omega's team. Soon after walking for a bit, Omega arrived at Icera City. After hearing it's an ice gym, Omega sent Cybertoad for Emboar and Lilligant for Beartick. On the next day, Omega arrived in Icera City Gym and challenged against the Ice Gym leader, Bryson. Bryson wasted no time and called out his Vanillish, while Omega called out Lilligant. Lilligant was able to deal some damage to Vanillish and even attract. In the end, Vanillish was defeated. Bryce then called out his second Pokemon, Cryogonal. Omega then called back his Lilligant and called out his Gigalith. During the battle, Cryogonal Rapid Spin Gigalith until Gigalith fired a new move known as Flash Cannon at Cryogonal. Then finished off the battle with Rock Slide, defeating Cryogonal. Bryce then called out his final Pokemon, Beartick. Omega then called back his Gigalith and sent out his Emboar. Omega thought he had the winning with the type advantage, but then Beartick attacked back using Aerial Ace and Bride. Omega's Emboar was pushed back, so Omega was going to call out another Pokemon until Emboar looked back, saying he wanted to still continue on with the fight. Omega smiled and accepted Emboar's wish. After countering Beartick's Aerial Ace with Hammer Arm, Emboar was able to finish off the battle with a close-range Flamethrower. And in the end, Emboar defeated Beartick. In the end, Omega was the winner and received the Freeze Badge. Once he healed his team, Omega made his way to the closest gym, which is Opelucid City. Whilst traveling to Opelucid City, Omega arrived at the Village of Dragons, where the people raise and admire Dragon-type Pokemon. After meeting with the Elder, she asked Omega if he had any Dragon-type Pokemon. After showing Swilus the Elder, she was happy to see that Omega has been raising his Swilus well. After getting kind words from the Elder, Omega continued his way to Opelucid City. Once he arrived at Opelucid City, he made sure his team was ready and headed to the gym, and meeting with the gym leader, Drayden. Drayden told Omega that he arrived just in time, because he's going to close the gym tomorrow. So if he wants to battle him, he must so do it now. So after taking a deep breath, Omega accepts. During the battle, Drayden called out his first Pokemon, Dredigan, while Omega called out his Beartick. However, Dredigan is so strong that it can block Beartick's Ice Beam. Dredigan then attacked with Flash Cannon, so Omega told his Beartick to use a close range Ice Punch. However, Dredigan fired his Flash Cannon, Beartick managed to dodge it, and finally did some damage to Dredigan, but it wasn't down yet. Omega then told Beartick to finish it off with Icicle Crash, finishing off Dredigan. Drayden called back his Dredigan and told Omega that he won using type advantage, but this next Pokemon might become of a challenge. Drayden then called out his second and final Pokemon, Haxorus. Omega then believed that his Beartick could win, however, Drayden told Haxorus to charge using Rock Smash, finishing off Beartick with one strike. Surprising Omega. Omega can only use one Pokemon left and decided to call out his Emboar, but then Swilus came out of his Pokeball, surprising everyone. Omega asked Swilus why he came out of his Pokeball. Swilus showed that he wants to face up against Haxorus. Omega was surprised, but agreed to Swilus' wish to face off against Haxorus. Drayden, curious about Omega's Swilus, asked for the full story. Omega told everything, and he was surprised, and Drayden complimented Omega for taking in Swilus after it was abandoned by its previous trainer. But coming out of his Pokeball just shows Swilus how much respect for Omega. But even with those kind words, his Haxorus didn't show any mercy. First he attacked using Rock Smash, then Dragon Claw, and finally Giga Impact. Just as the referee was about to announce that Swilus was unable to battle, Drayden stopped him. Then Swilus got back up. Swilus roared really loud, confusing Omega. But then it happened. Swilus started to glow and evolve into Hydreigon. Omega was both happy and surprised, and told Hydreigon to counterattack. Hydreigon then fired his new move Tri-Attack, dealing damage to Haxorus. Drayden then told his Haxorus to use Giga Impact, while Hydreigon countered it with Dragon Rush, and with Dragon Rush being a Dragon-type move, dealt more damage to Haxorus, then finished off the battle using Dragon Pulse. In the end, Omega won against Drayden. Drayden thanks for the battle and even saying that he was the first one to lose against him. And then Omega received the Legend Badge. Now that Omega has all 8 badges, he can enter the Unova League. However, it'll be a while, so Drayden suggests to Omega to go to Lucosada Town for a Pokemon World Tournament Junior Cup. Before leaving, Omega decided to take his Lilligant bag for his Croconaut, as well as Galvantula for Gothorita. Once his team was finally healed, and after traveling and training, Krokorok finally evolved into Crocodile, along with Gothorita evolving into Gothitelle. Once he arrived in Lucutia Town, he was on time for the tournament. He met so many trainers from previously, and Ash and his friends. But what made him surprised was to see Dawn, as well as Cynthia, talking to the Universe Champion Alder. After a quick catch up with them, the Pokemon World Cup Tournament Junior Cup was about to begin, with a 10-minute exhibition match between Cynthia, the Sinnoh League champion, and Caitlin from the Elite Four of Unova. After the exhibition match was over, the random selection was picked out, and Omega will be facing off a trainer named Mane. After Tripp's battle in the first round and won, it was Omega's turn against Mane. Mane called out his Heatmor, while Omega called out his Hydreigon. Once he was called out, everyone was amazed, seeing Omega having a Hydreigon now, and easily Hydreigon defeated Heatmor. Now everything still follows. Silent, Iris, Ash, and even Dawn. However, this time, unlike the original story, I'm gonna do something different. Instead of Ash up against Geraldo, Ash is going to face off against Omega. And you'll see why soon enough. Omega called out with Emboar, while Ash uses Boldore. Omega believes they can win with the type advantage. However, Boldore defeated Emboar, knocking out Omega of the Junior Cup. However, this time Omega stayed until the end and watched a C-Trip winning the tournament using only his superior. He even had the chance to battle against Universe Champion Alder and his Bufalon, but lost in the end. At the end of the Junior Cup, a Pokemon trainer named Cameron, who was supposed to enter the Junior Cup, was too late to enter. At the end of the day, Dawn battled against Ash, but Dawn leaves for the Johto region for the Wallace Cup for tomorrow. And on the next day, everyone including Omega says goodbye to Dawn. As she went, Cameron misses fight to Johto, thinking that the Unova League was set over there. and even thinking that they need 7 badges to enter. After telling her the truth, Cameron, he and everyone else left to watch his 8th badge. And instead of following Ash and Cameron, Omega stuck with Iris and Silent. After missing those 2 trainers, they finally arrived in Humalau City. However, Ash and Cameron wasn't there until the next day riding on a Wailord. Soon Cameron battled against the Humalau City gym leader, Marlon, in a 2-on-2 Pokemon battle, in which Cameron won and got the Wave badge. While walking back, Omega became friends with Ash's newest friend, Meloetta. After 2 days had passed, one day during training at Cynthia's vacation house in Ardala Town, in preparation for the Unova League, an enormous Golok appeared, descended in the battlefield. Riding by him is his trainer named Ridley, who immediately accused Ash of being the villain who kidnapped Meloetta. The misunderstanding was quickly sorted, and Larry explained that he is one of Meloetta's protectors, and that he and Golok have been looking for the mystical Pokemon for quite some time after it was taken by an unknown villain. The villain in question quickly make themselves known. A pair of Team Rocket agents have been tracking Meloetta to Cynthia's house, intent to recapture her. Larry said he and Golok will battle them while the others get Meloetta out of harm's way. The group began to run, but their path was blocked by Jesse, James, and Meowth. Iris and Silent stand against them, while Ash, Pikachu, Omega, and Meloetta go alone. Unfortunately, they were playing right into Team Rocket's hands, and the boss is waiting to apprehend them. Omega remembers him and calls him his name, Giovanni, and his Persian. Omega was going to call out his Emboar, however, he was trapped in a cage. And the same goes for Ash and his Pikachu. Giovanni ordered Meloetta to surrender, or her friends would get hurt. Meloetta had no choice, and the 4 of them were taken out to Team Rocket's helicopter. Then they transferred into a submarine that descended into a ruined temple at the bottom of Umbrella Bay. We watch helplessly as Meloetta is restrained inside the temple. Meowth begins to play a recording of Meloetta's humming song, which unlocked the ancient seal, transforming the temple and rising into the surface of the bay. As soon as the path was clear, Giovanni makes his way in most parts of the temple and claims the revealing glass, a mysterious mirror with unknown power. Giovanni acquired the mysterious revealing glass and used it to summon 3 legendary Pokemon, Tornadorus, Thundurus, and Landorus. Soon, Omega, Ash, and his Pikachu escape from their cage. The 2 trainers scaled at the temple to try and rescue Meloetta, but Jesse and James send Woobat and Yalma to stop them. They blow both of them away and Pikachu off the temple with Air Slash and Shadow Ball, but saved by Rylas' Golok. They reunite with the others at the base of the temple, resolving to stop Team Rocket's plan. They assemble a group of their Pokemon, Garchomp, Dragonite, Pansage, riding on Golok, Hydreigon, and Unpheasant, with Pikachu accompanying them. Our heroes watch in horror as the 3 legendary Pokemon change in their Therian form, and the pair wreak havoc upon Unova. Using extra electricity it absorbed from the attack from Thundurus, Pikachu learned a massive Electro Ball to overpower Team Rocket as well as freeing Meloetta. But Giovanni still holds the revealing glass, and without Meloetta's calming influence, he became completely overcome with the evil intention. Instead of conquering the Unova region, now he wants to destroy it. But Jesse, James, and Meowth intervene to sway their boss from this disastrous path. As soon as he returned to his senses, Team Rocket recurrently retreated. Ridley used the revealing glass to return the 3 legendary Pokemon to their incarnate form, and Meloetta's smoothness their rage with a song. With disaster averted, Riley and Meloetta bid our heroes farewell and prepared to return home. The next day, Omega and Ash found out the Unova League is set in Virtuous City. Omega wanted to start training immediately, decided to say goodbye to Ash and his friends, and head off by himself so he can train. Omega called his Hydreigon and decided to go to Opaloosa City. Once he arrived there, he walked as well as stopped and trained his team, and finally arrived in Virtuous City. Once there, he met with Ash and his friends, along with Bianca, Stefan, and their newest friend, Virgil. They all entered and registered for the Unova League, and guess who came at the registration? Trip. And he told Ash that hopefully they will battle each other. Once all of us were registered for the tournament, we headed to our hotel, where we just met Cameron outside in his tent. But finding out Cameron isn't registered, Ash helped him quickly, and lucky for him, is registered for the Unova League before it closes. That night, everyone was sleeping. Well, except for Omega. He was just remembering every single gym battle that he fought in the Unova League, and once it's over, what's he gonna do next? Morning came and the Unova League was about to begin. After battling in the qualifier rounds, Omega battled his opponent Among Us using his breviary and won. Soon he watched Ash's battle alongside Silent, Iris, Bianca, Stefan, and Cameron, and in the end, Ash won using his Pikachu against Trip's Superior. On the next day is the main event of the Unova League. Now trainers can use 2 Pokemon and substitution is allowed. After Omega watches Cameron against Bianca, in the end, Cameron won using his Riolu. Soon, Omega, Ash, Stefan, even Virgil got through the main event. Now just like in the anime, Ash is against Stefan, and Omega is up against a trainer named Catherine. That afternoon, Omega switched out his team Brave for Catherine, not knowing her team of 3, switching out Gothitelle for Braviary. Next day, after Ash's battle against Stefan, it was Omega's turn against Catherine. Catherine called out a Darmanitan, while Omega called out Emboar. The 2 fire types clashed, but in the end, Emboar was victorious against Darmanitan. Catherine then called out a second Pokemon, Mandibuzz, while Omega called back his Emboar and called out his Braviary. The 2 flying type Pokemon clashed, flying high in the sky, and soon the 2 clashed with each other with Brave Birds. In the end, Mandibuzz was defeated. Catherine then called out a final Pokemon, Minccino, while Omega called back his Braviary and called out Crocodile. Crocodile defeated Minccino easily, putting Omega into the qualifier rounds, and his next opponent is Russell in a full 6-on-6 battle. As for Ash, he's going to be battling against Cameron. That afternoon, Omega made sure to put his full 6-on-6 Pokemon in action. First he picked Emboar, Lilligant, Braviary, Gigalith, Beartick, and Hydreigon, while Gothitelle, Galvantula, Seismitoad, and Croconaut are at Professor Juniper's lab. On the next day, Omega watches Ash's battle against Cameron, and in the end, Cameron won even with 5 Pokemon. As for Omega, he battled with his 5 without using Hydreigon, and in the next battle, Cameron's up against Virgil, while Omega, he's up against none other than Dino, the same Dino that Omega battled in the first round in the Curve battle in Nabasa Town. That afternoon, Omega sends Gigalith for Crocorock and Lilligant for Gothitelle. Now Dino's got a lot stronger using against Omega. He used Darmanitan, Mandibuzz, Cofagrigus, Leavanny, Galvantula, and Druddigon. However, Omega used all of his Pokemon, including Hydreigon, and used Hydreigon against Druddigon, and finally finished off with Dragon Rush, putting Omega into the finals, and he'll be facing his none other against Virgil. However, in this story, Virgil has all the Eevee evolutions, being Vaporeon, Jolteon, Flareon, Espeon, Umbreon, Leafeon, Glaceon, as well as an Eevee. Unfortunately, the next day, both the trainers were battling out. Both trainers have 1 Pokemon on their team, Omega and Croconaut, while Virgil has Eevee. However, Eevee took down Crocorock using Iron Tail, making Virgil the winner of the Unova League. The next day, Omega decides to go with Ash and his friends back to November Town. However, something was calling to him, something that Ash and his friends couldn't feel. So he told Ash and his friends that something's calling to him. So he's going to go on his own journey. As soon as he arrived in Opelousas City, he made sure his team was ready. After passing through the Village of Dragons, Omega was invited by the Elder to enter a special Pokemon battle tournament, held once a year in the Village of Dragons. Omega stayed at Shannon's house, Iris' childhood friend. When morning dawned at the Village of Dragons, the battle tournament was about to begin. However, there was one person who came to battle against the Village of Dragons battle tournament. It was none other than the Dragon Buster, Georgia. Omega explained to Sharon that she's Iris' rival. Georgia cuts to the chase, saying she wants to be part of the Village of Dragons tournament. All the residents disagree, but the Elder asks Georgia why she wants to enter. And Georgia says she just wants to defeat every Dragon-type Pokemon in the village, showing that how strong she was. But the Elder asks what if she does lose, and Georgia complains saying she would not lose. The Elder smiled and accepts her in the tournament. Nearly all the residents disagreed, but the Elder commented that Omega isn't part of the Village of Dragons. That made all the residents of the Village of Dragons quiet. Soon as the tournament began, Georgia defeated her opponents using her Beartick. Soon she was battling against Shannon and her Swilers. Unfortunately, she was defeated by Beartick. After Omega, he'd been battling great until he reached the finals, and he's up against none other than Georgia. Georgia insulted Omega to throw his Hydreigon, but Omega, he just smiled and accepts. Everyone was surprised, even Shannon, but the Elder just smiles, knowing what Omega is trying to do. However, Georgia got upset, thinking that Omega is taunting her. Georgia then called out a Beartick. Hydreigon only did a little bit of damage using Tri-Attack and Double Hit, but those attacks weren't enough to beat Beartic. Beartic then fired Ice Beam, hitting Hydreigon with a perfected attack. However, it was not enough to take him down. Hydreigon got up and fired a brand new move known as Flash Cannon, surprising everyone. But one Flash Cannon wasn't enough to beat Beartic. But after firing another one, Beartic was defeated. Everyone clapped and cheered for Omega defeating the so-called Dragon Buster. As for Georgia, she was still shocked, being defeated by a Dragon-type Pokemon. As she collapsed on the ground, the Elder walked to Georgia. The Elder asked Georgia how she lost to a Dragon-type Pokemon. Georgia looked at the Elder and she said that the Dragon-types have a special bond between humans that makes them stronger. Georgia called back her Beartic and told Omega that she'll win next time, then left the Village of Dragons. Omega then received the prize for winning the tournament, a Dragon Scale. Omega was grateful for the reward, but then heard a roar. The Elder was surprised, knowing that roar belongs to the legendary Pokemon Zekrom. Omega then asked the Elder could that Pokemon be calling to him. The Elder was confused and Omega told her everything about how he first met Zekrom. The Elder then told Omega which is Dragon Spiral Tower, which is closer to Icera City. Omega then said goodbye to everyone in the Village of Dragons and head out to Icera City. Once Omega arrived in Icera City, he asked Nurse Joy from the Pokemon Center about the tower, and she said it's a recognizable landmark that has an unknown build, or when it was built, and the oldest structures in Unova. But some say this is where legendary Pokemon are created and slumbered. As for no one can enter inside the tower, Omega, still knowing he needs to go to Dragon Spiral Tower, headed up there. Once he arrived there, he couldn't enter, so he used Hydreigon to get on top of the tower. Once he arrived on the top, he called back his Hydreigon and headed downstairs into the staircase. After walking around a bit, he entered a room with a giant open hole, but then something flew inside, and it was none other than the legendary Pokemon of Unova, Zekrom. Omega couldn't speak, but only looked at the jet black Pokemon. Soon, he had enough courage to ask Zekrom why he called him here. Then he remembered what Juniper said, saying that his lightning bolts are judgment from up above. Then he asked Zekrom if he called him to judge him. Zekrom was shocked and shook his head. Then his head pointed at something and looked at the side. Omega looked at the stone pillar, showing Zekrom and Reshiram with two people. Omega then realized and asked Zekrom if he would like to give him his power. Zekrom nodded. Omega then looked down and told Zekrom that he doesn't need his power, because he's been traveling with his Pokemon to get stronger, to grow a bond which makes them to face anything. As soon as Zekrom took Omega's words, he turned around, looked back at Omega and singled him, realizing he wants to get on his back. Omega was surprised, but jumped on Zekrom. Zekrom flied out of the Dragon Spiral Tower. Omega was amazed that he was riding on a legendary Pokemon. He was riding around across Unova, looking down at everyone and every Pokemon, but not knowing that what's up above their heads. While Omega enjoyed flying on Zekrom, he started to look distant. Omega then told the legendary Pokemon to take him where he wants. After flying for a bit, Omega heard an explosion and soon saw the legendary Pokemon Reshiram. But not only seeing that, but seeing Ash and his friends alongside some other people. However, as soon as Reshiram was starting to unleash her ray, destroying some objects, the guy with the green hair was trying to calm Reshiram down. But then, Zekrom roared and everyone looked up and surprised to see Omega riding on Zekrom. Soon, the group in black clothes were trying to escape, but Ash's friends stopped them. Zekrom landed and Ash and the others were surprised to see Omega with Zekrom. But Omega asked what was going on. Then the green guy with green hair, who Omega didn't know his name, talked to Reshiram. Once Reshiram roared, the legendary Pokemon flew into the sky. Then he walked to Omega, asking him who he is. Omega introduced himself, and now he knows the person's name is N. After knowing what just happened, N asked why Omega rode on Unova's legendary Pokemon. And after telling him what happened, all of them were surprised at refusing help of a Unova's legendary. After telling that, Omega looked at Zekrom and thanked him for the ride. Zekrom smiled and nodded his head. As soon as Zekrom flies away, that afternoon, Omega said goodbye to N and his friends and walked with Ash, Iris, Silent to Newville Town. Once they arrive there, they stay at Professor Juniper's lab. After a day of rest, Ash, Iris, and Siren decide to go through the Color Islands, where several rare Pokemon live, and as for Omega, he decided to go back to Kanto. So Juniper transferred all of Omega's Unova Pokemon to Professor Oak's lab, and said goodbye to all of them. Once Omega arrived back in Pallet Town, and introduced the rest of his Unova team, Tracy, Professor Oak's lab assistant, told Omega that he has a surprise for him. Well, his Pokemon have a surprise for him. More specifically, his Eevee and Jolteon. After wondering what it is, and Eevee jumped on Omega, landing him on his back. After meeting the little Pokemon, Omega asked Tracy who his Pokemon belonged to. And Tracy just smiled and said, "It's yours," which Omega was surprised, since he didn't capture another Eevee, but then realized something. Jolteon's a boy, and Espeon's a girl, meaning that this is their Pokemon, which also makes one of his Pokemon. Tracy correct Omega with everything, saying it was born as soon as she finished the Unova League. Omega was just wild and just processed everything. As soon as Espeon and Jolteon came and found Eevee, they all cuddled up as one big happy family. Tracy then asked Omega what he's gonna do now, and Omega said he's gonna take a rest for a bit. Before leaving, Eevee would like to come with him. Not going to argue with something so cute, Omega took his newest Pokemon home. Whilst relaxing in Pallet Town and with his Pokemon, but while chilling with Seadra and remembering he's got a dragon scale, and with the help of Tracy, he evolved his Seadra into Kingdra. 2.5 weeks pass, Omega meet up with Ash again, and Omega was introduced to Alexa and her Pokemon from another region known as Kalos. After having another brawl with Team Rocket, that night, Omega decided to go to Kalos with Ash and enter the Kalos League. After telling his family that he's going to Kalos, they were happy for him for going to another adventure. That night, Omega got ready. Before leaving, Omega decided to pick which one of his Pokemon to come with him. But then, Eevee came up to Omega and embraced him. Omega then came up with the idea and asked Eevee if she would like to come with him. After a cute smile, she said yes. He then asked Jolteon and Espeon, and they were alright with that. So, at the airport, with Ash, Pikachu, and Alexa saying goodbye to his friends and family, they got on a plane to Kalos. And with that, my Pokemon anime journey for my character is done in Unova. And, of course, the next story will be in Kalos. I believe I got a lot of questions in this video, so let's just get to it. Now, I know what you're gonna say. Omega, you should have let your Pokemon trainer capture Zekrom. No. Just no. Honestly, I said in the story, not capture any legendary Pokemon. I can meet legendary Pokemon, battle legendary Pokemon, but not capture legendary Pokemon. And Zekrom, while he's my favorite, and I let my character ride it, he's not going to use it. Now, of course, I was tempted to have my character battle against Cameron, because for those who don't know, I hate Cameron, like a lot. So, however, Dino was in the tournament, he was in the finals, in the original story, and honestly, having a rematch against him for my character would be an amazing story, would you think? Next up, Jolteon and Espeon. Now, of course, I know I'm going to get a lot of comments from this. Why did I make those two Pokemon have an Eevee? First of all, in my story, Jolteon's a boy and Espeon's a girl. Secondly, I looked up and you can use 2 different Eevee evolutions to make an Eevee. And honestly, I was going to let my character catch an Eevee in Unova. But when I found out about this, I just said, you know what? Why not? And finally, in part 12, when your trainer goes to Kalos, which Pokemon Mega Evolution form are you going to use for your character? Now, of course, I have not decided just yet. Because honestly, I am tired right now at making this video as we speak. I am just going to relax, maybe focus on my other projects, and then come back to this in like 10 videos. But before this video ends, I'm going to tell you my Universe team's new moves before this video ends. First off is Gigalith, who got smacked down to learn Flash Cannon. Once Krokorok evolved into Crocodile, still knows Crunch Dig, and Stone Edge, but now's no Shadow Claw. Next up is Gothorita. Once she evolved into Gothitelle, she still knows Psyshock and Psychic, but learned Dark Pulse and Mirror Coat. And once Swirus evolved into Hydreigon, it still knows Double Hit, but learns Tri-Attack, Dragon Rush, and Dragon Pulse. And while battling against George's Beartic, it forgot Double Hit to learn Flash Cannon. Unfortunately, Emboar, Lilligant, Cybertoad, Galvantula, Beartic didn't learn any moves. And with that, that's at the end of part 11 of the Unova region. Hope you enjoyed this video and looking forward to the next story. This is Omega Emperor. Stay awesome.